Next thing we want to talk about is what does the Republican and Democrat Party look like if Trump or Harris loses in November? I'm wondering. Please also, guys, if you're here watching, please put something in the chat here. We want to talk to you live. What does the Republican and Democrat Party look like if Trump or Harris loses in November? Now, listen, somebody's got to lose. And when that happens, there will be it'll be different, but each party is going to have a reckoning. Each party is going to have a reckoning for different reasons. So let's talk about the Republican Party first. If Donald Trump loses in November, what happens to the Republican Party? A sense of relief. I've told you all many times, if you work in D.C., you have anything to do with the Hill, you have anything to do with politics and government here, you recognize one thing, that the Republican Party, behind closed doors, outside the spotlight, with no cameras and no microphones are available, do not like, respect, want, support Donald Trump. They are forced to do his bidding because he is control of the party. Donald Trump Jr. was right. This is now the party of Trump. Long live Trump, because the party of Reagan is dead. And there are many. You can call them elites, you can call them rhinos, Republicans, and name only all you want to. They will be relieved if Donald Trump is gone. The GOP does not like Donald Trump. They want access and control over MAGA. And what does that mean? It means they don't like Donald Trump, but they want the populism. They want the excitement. They want the 15,000 people at the rallies. They want that energy. They want those voters to continue to vote for them and support them, but they don't want Donald Trump to be in control of them. And if he loses another race, they will dismiss him and put him by the wayside. And so the sense of relief is in that a loss by Donald Trump will allow them to publicly be able to say he's a two-time loser, and that's all we need to do with him. I think another thing that happens is that the MAGA goes the way of the moral majority or the religious right. You heard me talk about that earlier, that at one time in the early 80s, the moral majority, the religious right, had an ascendancy that was much like MAGA. It had an ascendancy that was much like, the deciding group of folks. It may have been 40% of the party coalition at that time, that they could deliver votes in places like Iowa and New Hampshire in the primary. They in the caucuses. They could deliver real big support in the South, where those evangelical churches were going. They had PACs. They had C4 money. They had C3 money. They had lots of money, lots of supporters, and they were organizing the grassroots in the same way MAGA is organizing, right? And so you had people like Pat Robertson, who ran for president, who actually had a snowball's chance of winning the nomination on the strength of evangelical voters. You had Pat Buchanan lay into a primary challenge, and the George Bush, was really weakened him and softened him up for the get by Bill Clinton and Al Gore in the fall. But Pat Buchanan waged war in those primaries, and the Buchanan Brigade was made up largely, about 40%, 50% of the religious right, who saw in him a warrior king who would slay what they thought was a George Bush sort of weakness when it came to dealing with their issues. The other thing I think is if Donald Trump loses in November is that 20 people will run for president in 2028. I mean, the floodgates will open up to try and be the person who now sets the new course, the new way of living, the new way of moving in the future in terms of who leads the party. Kamala Harris loses, the party will hopefully shuffle towards the younger party members to prepare for 2028 as boomers pass away and Gen Z moves up. Yes, Rachel, I agree with you there. I'm getting to the Democrats. This whole time, I'm getting to the Democrats. But I think 20 people will run for president in 2028. Who do I think runs? I think Ron DeSantis obviously runs again. I think everybody you saw this year runs again. I think Vivek Ramaswamy runs. I don't think Chris Christie runs, but I think Tim Scott runs. I think you'll see Nikki Haley run again. I think that's why she endorsed Trump in the first place, that she'd have a future in this party. I think you see a lot of people coming off the bench. I think you see if Ted Cruz survives his race, which is, neck and neck, Ted Cruz takes another shot at it. I think you see other senators like Senator Cotton taking a shot, Senator Harley taking a shot. I think you see all the governors taking a shot. I think you even see some of these sort of folks on the outside of the party, people like a Charlie Kirk, these younger sort of Republicans who are, MAGA influence. You see some of those, content creators and commentators and analysts. I think you'll see a young brigade of runners there. Well, I think there'll be at least 20 people that run. And it'll be interesting to see if they hearken back to Reagan or they hearken back to Donald Trump. Now, my take is I think they will actually talk the rhetoric of Donald Trump, because he won't be there anymore. Not to beat them up. He might tweet about him, but they can grab the populist talk, but then they'll grab the policy that is Ronald Reagan. So that's what I think. And then the last thing I think about what will happen to the Republican Party if Donald Trump loses is I think there'll be the fever will break amongst the Republicans, and they will ignore Donald Trump or repudiate him publicly like Joe McCarthy. Those of you, again, I'm a history nut here, so that's why I always bring up history, and I always try to give you a little background. So Joe McCarthy was the man who led the Red Scare, the man who talked about, the communists, right, and locking up people and, putting people on the list and saying, I have a list. He would wave it around. I have a list here of on my book here. I have a list of communists who are ruining the nation. And you're not going to look at my book because my book is there, but I'm going to bring you before it. And if you admit that you're a communist, and I'll go easy on you, but I'm not going to let you know if you're in the book. You just got to tell me, right? And the same kind of fever that MAGA sells people, that, when we get in office, we're going to just throw lawsuits, we're going to send people to jail on the Democrat side, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Like Joe McCarthy actually did that. And people knew it was wrong. And people knew names were not in this, there was no names in this book. And even if they were, people have a right to be part of the Communist Party in America. But we had such a Red Scare in the 50s that it ended people's careers. They made movies about this. And then there just came a point in time where people were like, this is ridiculous. And I forget the gentleman's name. Maybe somebody in the chat here can tell me, but he set up and he went to a hearing of McCarthy, and he says, "Sir, at long last, have you no shame?" And it was almost like people woke up and saw like the emperor had no clothes, and they were like, "What have we been doing?" And he just lost favor. And Joe McCarthy died in obscurity from alcoholism because he was a chronic alcoholic. And I don't think that the dive downward will be that extreme for Donald Trump. But what you will see is a sense of relief, as I mentioned initially, and you will see Donald Trump and Trumpers basically dismissing him, trying to find ways to gin his support up. I fully expect the MAGA presence in the Republican Party to go down to about the level of where the evangelical, religious right vote is right now in the Republican Party. I see that is happening again. I see that is happening one more time. They will go down to about 20, 25%. They will have importance in the party, but they will not be the main part of the coalition that is the Republican Party. Now, the Democrats lose. If Kamala Harris loses, I think the divide intensifies within the Democratic Party. There is a natural fight, a natural proclivity for the progressives in the party to fight against the moderates in the party, the New Dems versus the progressive wing in the Congress, for instance, the problem solvers versus the Democratic Socialists. I mean, all the kind of ways you can make this fight, but that starts to happen. I think that is sort of the headline for what happens if Kamala Harris loses. I think, though, the first thing that actually happens in terms of being specific about it is that there'll be a mea culpa about Joe Biden. So everybody will second guess the fact that they told Joe Biden to not run. If you look at where Kamala Harris is polling wise, and I've said this in my content. Now, yes, I'm a Democrat. I'm happy that she is close. I'm happy that it is, she's leading all around the country. I'm happy that she's leading in battleground states. I'm happy. But when you take out the margin of error, this race is essentially just tied. It's tied in the battleground states. It's tied nationally. And that's what Joe Biden was even after the debate, right? There were a few places where he was where Trump was moving ahead, but that's first week and a half. Yeah, I got you, Rachel. But I think the people were happy, who were telling him to go out. Those first week and a half, those numbers that Joe Biden was posting against Trump after a disastrous debate were about the same as where we are right now. So if she loses, the whole thing would be like, we really went out on a lark here and we lost anyway. Maybe we should have kept Joe Biden. And it depends on how she loses, right? So that's something to think about. The other thing is, as I mentioned, the war between the New Dems and the Progressives takes center stage. The New Dems will talk about being pragmatic, about getting things done. The Progressives will talk about aspirational things, that we should be standing in line for $20 an hour, minimum wage and those kind of things. And you will see a fight, because the fight is there. It's just been submerged to the greater good, the greater glory of party unity in order to win an election. I think you'll see 20 people run for president in 2028. So I think all the people who've been circumvented because of Kamala Harris's rise, if she loses, will be reinvigorated to come out again. I think you'll get more people running again from the pragmatic side and the progressive side to see who's now the leader of the party, because if no Joe Biden is there and Kamala Harris loses, there is no head of the party anymore. And so you will see Cory Booker running again. You will see Amy Klobuchar running again. You will see Pete Buttigieg run again. You will see new people like Kirsten Gillibrand run. You will see folks coming out from the South. You will see people like Andy Beshear running. You'll see Josh Shapiro, governor from Pennsylvania, running. You will see Gavin Newsom running. You will see a whole host of people who say, why not? Right? What do I got to do? You'll see Wes Moore, governor of Maryland, running. Any Democratic governor worth his salt is going to throw his hat in the ring, and about half a dozen young Democrats who are in the Senate will run. You'll get a few House people that will run as well. You might even get AOC to run just to replace the Bernie element in that primary. So you'll have everybody running. It'll be crazy, like cats in a bag. Last thing I think you'll see is new voices will begin to emerge from the local levels. So kind of what you say, Rachel. Rachel gets the bell because she's made a good point. I think you'll see even younger people coming out. In the same way, I think you'll see that in the Republican Party. I think you'll see younger local leaders. I think you'll see, Congress people running from the House. I think you'll see like state senators or leaders of nonprofit organizations who are young and who are talking about, politics in a different way. And I think that'll be good for the electorate. I think it'll change the position of the Democratic Party on a number of fundamental issues that they have really not had the guts to do in a long time. And yeah, shake up generationally will be good for us.